Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today is Chris Hamill and Michael McCubbin. And today we're talking about Barcelona and Quique Setién. This came in because Hamza Hafiz asked, do you think Setién can win the Champions League with Barcelona this season? But before we get into that, just a quick reminder to subscribe to Eurofootball Daily and hit that notification bell to never miss a Continental Club. But in truth, it's been the talk of the week on the continent, obviously. It's quite exciting now when a manager gets fired. I don't know. Before working this job, I never used to get a thrill.
Horrible bastard.
I never used to get a thrill when someone was fired, but I think it's our search for news. But now I got quite a buzz when he was removed from office on Monday afternoon, and everyone's been talking about it. So the official FD Discord gang wanted it, Kuno Wadwell wanted it, and Spondask Cashback Yap also wanted it as well. I think that's just his Twitter name. So it's been the talk of the town. McCubbs, explain what's happened and maybe a bit of the background to sort of Valverde's last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was all a little bit up in the air this week, wasn't it, with the potential of Xavi joining. That didn't work out. And obviously, yeah, Setién. This is the thing. I feel like Setién is maybe second or third choice here. I feel like Barcelona maybe would have approached Pochettino as well, just to test his resolve in terms of obviously his links with Espanyol and previously saying he wouldn't manage Barcelona. I can't imagine a world where Barcelona didn't approach him.
They did.
So yeah, there we have it. So it's already a little bit of a difficult place for Setién to start being essentially the third choice, although he has been tipped to be the next Barcelona manager for the last couple of years, especially with what he did with Real Betis. Stylistically, obviously, he does seem to suit what Barcelona are trying to get, or at least what the fans want in the kind of post-Pep era. But it's hard not to think that it's a little bit harsh what's happened to Valverde. I think the sacking was probably coming in terms of his general, how the fans felt about him. Not very popular with them at all. They've pretty much been calling for his head for the last 18 months. And obviously those losses in the Champions League as well, Roma and Liverpool last season, have kind of gone down as the two most kind of humiliating nights in kind of Barcelona's modern history. But I think in terms of what Valverde was given over the last kind of 2-3 years, it's difficult to see what he could have done that much better. Like he didn't arrive at Barcelona, promising to play, amazing attacking kind of Cruyffian football. He was never known for that. They knew that when they got him. He secured 2 La Liga titles. Okay, Real Madrid weren't at their strongest the last couple of years, but he also arrived with Neymar having left. And had Neymar stayed, you suddenly start to question, would they have actually lost those kind of games in that kind of manner? Because let's remember, like, Luis Enrique was essentially saved by Neymar after they lost 4-0 to PSG in the Champions League the season before. And obviously they had massive investment. You had, obviously Griezmann came in last summer, and then before that, Coutinho and Dembele after the Neymar sale. But you always kind of felt that they weren't the signings that Valverde necessarily wanted. Obviously Dembele, injuries, talk of attitude problems as well, just clearly hasn't worked out. Coutinho as well, Coutinho for whatever reason. I think maybe Valverde is a bit more to blame for that. But then again, and Griezmann as well. Huge money spent on him, but wasn't really what Barcelona needed. Like, we're talking about, Barcelona needing a Luis Suarez replacement when they've spent that much money on another striker who isn't that guy. So, I think Valverde has, he was dealt a little bit of a harsh hand, but it feels like he probably did run his course. The football in the last 3-4 months particularly wasn't very good. Haven't really seen the best of, say, Frankie de Jong so far. Last season, despite winning it, they had their joint lowest points tally of the post-Pep era with 87. I think they scored the least amount of goals in the league since the Frank Rijkaard era. So it's understandable that he's gone, and I think it just goes to show, I think, the rise in standards since Pep came in 10 years ago. Obviously, the last manager who left the club midway through a season, I think, I might be wrong, but the last manager to be outright sacked by the club, in this fashion at least, was Van Gaal back in 2003, when Barcelona were 12th in La Liga. I think they ended up that season 6th. And obviously, okay, they didn't have Messi at the time, but they still had a pretty good team, one that wasn't, that was more than capable of of challenging for the Liga title at the time. It just goes to show, just how much more demanding this club is now since Pep and the kind of culture that he instilled. I think there's a kind of misconception a little bit that Barcelona fans have always been this picky. Obviously, Cruyff had a huge effect on the club, but I don't think it was really until Pep came in that suddenly it became like doctrine that Barcelona have to win the league, have to, challenge for the Champions League every season, and also play this super high pressing, super tiki-taka style of play that obviously Cruyff's kind of started, but Pep very much perfected. So in that sense, I guess Valverde in the first place wasn't necessarily the best person to pick, but also this latest appointment of Setién, I don't know if I see him lasting 2 years. Obviously stylistically great, but I just don't know whether I see, this could changing the manager at this point in the season could derail this title challenge. It really could. They could be sacrificing the Liga title for this. And will Barcelona fans be happy if they lose out in La Liga but don't win the Champions League? If they lose out in La Liga and the Champions League but their style of play gets better, I don't know if they will be that much happier. I really don't. And I don't know, it feels like maybe it's to do with Messi. Maybe, there's definitely a kind of will for Messi to win the Champions League before he retires once more. And, how much longer does he have left as the figurehead of the club? I don't know, there's a lot of questions and there hasn't been, any answers really in the last week as to all of these. But I guess they're questions that probably don't get answered until the end of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like, as you said, Setién's already started on the back foot in that he wasn't just, I think he was fourth choice in the end. They went to Xavi, he wanted to stay in Qatar because there's basically, he supposedly, reportedly, doesn't appreciate the sort of political instability around the club. There's presidential elections in 2021, and one of the guys that's going for it is a guy called Victor Font, I believe, who is a local businessman who is supposedly keen to bring in Xavi as head coach when he hopefully wins the next election. So Xavi's supposedly holding off. Ronald Koeman didn't want to leave Holland ahead of the Euros, supposedly Guillaume Balaguer says that Pochettino was approached as well. So he's already starting on the back foot. But now, guys, we've got something slightly different. I asked for fan opinions on Twitter this week, and we can quickly hear what Finlay had to say on the matter and what he's thinking about Setién's appointment.
My thoughts with Quique Setién to Barca are mainly positive. He's an attacking, possession-based manager who utilises a 10 well. In my opinion, Messi should be a 10 for the last few years of his career, and we'll hopefully see the best careers that he could possibly have instead of being wasted under Valverde.
Thank you very much, Finlay. Look out for my tweets. I tend to send it on Wednesdays. We're trying to integrate more fan opinion in Continental Club in 2020. Chris, you've talked about Quique Setién for quite a while. You're a fan of his Betis side. What is his sort of backstory?
Yeah, I think before I address the question, it is worth revisiting his past, because before his Real Betis stint, there's no way he'd be in the question for a job like this. So he's 61 years old, so seasoned veteran at this point. He played in the late 70s, finished his career in the mid-90s. Highlight in his playing career is probably a 3-year stint at Atletico Madrid between 85 and 88. So he's been around the block, ladies and gentlemen. 3 caps for Spain, so he's a decent calibre of player. So he will probably get that bit of respect from his squad. And he's definitely done the hard yards in terms of, cutting his teeth managerially. So Racing Santander, Poli El Ejido, Equatorial Guinea, Logrones, Lugo, Las Palmas, and Real Betis. And his ascendancy really kicked off when he was at Las Palmas, didn't it? Because until then, as you've probably gauged from the teams I've just listed off, strictly in the lower leagues, and then he finished 11th with Las Palmas in October 2015. He arrived in October 2015 and finished 11th in his first season, beating Sevilla, Villarreal and Valencia. And then in 16-17, he finishes 11th again. So this is a real purple patch for that club. This was despite losing 13 of their final 20 games, which we saw happen at Real Betis as well. So maybe he's got that kind of Bielsa, Sampaoli sort of thing about him, where he's so demanding on his squad physically that very occasionally they can tail off in the second half of the season. Let's see if that happens here. He was then appointed Betis manager in May 2017, finished 6th in his first season. This is when he really started to become, appear on everyone's radar, so to speak. So he's 13 points behind 4th place Valencia. That's their highest finish, Real Betis, since 2004-05. So really brought the good times back, scoring 60 league goals as well. That's where they were really impressive, wasn't it? Going forward, as well as Mark Bartra at centre-half, who was absolutely superb. Particularly in that first season when he arrived in that 6-month loan. I distinctly remember him finishing in La Liga team of the season despite being in the league for only half a year.
It was awesome.
Yeah, so when they scored those 60 league goals, only topped by Barcelona, Real Madrid, Real Sociedad and Valencia. So this is when, as well as that 4-3 victory at the Camp Nou, he starts to appear on Barcelona fans' radar as, this guy loves attacking football, he's willing to sacrifice everything for this purest brand of football. And I suppose this is maybe where the love affair might be quite strong, but certainly their interest in him begins. In 18-19, strings together some very impressive results, as well as getting to the semi-finals in the Copa del Rey, beat Atletico Madrid, Real Madrid and Barcelona in the league as well. So starting to sound himself out as a guy who can sort of, take points off the big dogs. But again, only won 3 of their final 11 games, eventually finishing 10th. So that season ended on a bit of a whimper, didn't it? 10 points fewer than the season before, left by mutual consent after that. So sort of shrouded in disappointment, I guess, at the end of his Betis career. And it didn't look likely that he'd be in contention for a top job as a result. It's not like he built on his success in his first 2 seasons. But here we are. Barcelona have worked their way, to 4th, 5th in their list. And here he is. And they find themselves with another stopgap. I think Ernesto Valverde was very much seen as that when he came in, a pragmatist, someone that would stabilise the club, someone that probably wouldn't have a huge opinion or sway on transfers, so would just succumb to the orders from above. And now they find themselves going from one transitional manager to another, and we're asking if this guy, who has no pedigree in Europe, can win them a Champions League. He's no more qualified than Valverde. Valverde suffered a couple of freak defeats. Had Dembele scored that 4th against Liverpool, where Messi puts him through 1-on-1. May well have changed the course of his stewardship at Barcelona, and they're the fine margins we're talking about. And I just don't know if Barcelona, I think their squad building has been horrible in the last couple of years, and the way they're transitioning from one manager to another is not very coherent. And I fully expect, 18 months where Real Madrid could really capitalise on this, because Zidane's starting to add defensive strings to his bow, isn't he? I think you're going to visit some of the per 90 numbers now. I've been talking for long enough, but there was cracks, wasn't there, starting to appear at Barcelona?
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't know how they've let Real Madrid back in this.
I kind of agree with you that it's a weird appointment as well. I feel like if they'd waited to the summer, they could have got Ten Hag, they could have got Allegri, they could have made a more concerted effort to get Pochettino. It does feel like a slightly strange appointment. But yeah, top of Setién's in tray will be sorting out their away form. So they've already lost to Atletico Bilbao, Granada, Levante, and drawn to Osasuna, Real Sociedad, and Espanyol this year. And the stats are actually pretty damning. So they're hovering just about 61% possession, which is their lowest tally of the last 11 years. So the Barcelona way wasn't being played, and the sort of more defensive-minded football wasn't really working for Valverde either. They are obviously 7th for shots in the division. That's what you'd expect under a more defensive coach, which was down from 14.7 last year. That's their lowest record since WhoScored started collecting shot data in 09-10. But they weren't much more solid at the other end. They were 6th in the division for shots conceded with 10.3, which was actually down from last year. But in their treble-winning season, so in 14-15, they only conceded 8 per game, which shows that Valverde's defensive football wasn't successful. Well, it was successful in the league, but I would argue that they wouldn't have necessarily won the league title by so much last year. I think it was 11 points, but Real Madrid were obviously having a horrible year. They were going through 3 managers, etc.
And I think the point from Barcelona fans is, just to interject,
No, go for it.
that it's required 2 historic seasons from Messi post 30 to keep them in contention of all of these titles. So that is definitely a criticism that can be levelled at Valverde. I mean, having the best player ever dig you out of situations, like, not that damning if it's every now and then, but to have, 60-61% possession and a lot of it be sterile, to be forever changing your 4-3-3. Obviously, we saw him adapt it from a 4-4-2 at the start. He then reverted to that. He then went back to the 4-3-3 after fan and board pressure, and to have sort of like against Levante in recent weeks. I think it was Levante. No, it wasn't Levante. Oh no, who was it? I'm going to forget. They won 4-0. Oh, anyway, moving on. Like, he lined up with Carlos Alenya, he lined up with Busquets and Vidal in midfield. And then Carlos Alenya, he played a full 90, Carlos Alenya, and then the week later he went to Real Betis on loan. It was just a little bit like haphazard, wasn't it? So yeah, I do think we have to take that into account.
Definitely. And I feel like you said some of their squad building's been horrible. I'd slightly disagree with that. I think some of their signings have been quite weird. I don't think Coutinho was the right player, in that he loves to play centrally. He was forced out into the wing and he wasn't defensive-minded enough to play in a Barcelona 3. And then Griezmann was just very overpriced, really, and probably should have been bought 2 years ago. But I feel like Longley's been a good sign. I think like Frankie de Jong will be a fixture of the Barcelona midfield for the next 10
they're good
years.
signings. But
Junior
this is Barcelona.
as well.
The good players will want to go there.
Yeah.
Junior Firpo's done nothing since arriving there. I think he was a good player, but not necessarily right for Barcelona. But
I give him some time.
I mean, with Setién, he's probably going to be. I mean, I think what will be interesting with Setién is that you'll probably see the transition out of Jordi Alba and he'll bring in Firpo. Obviously, he kind of made him at Betis, didn't he? And then you'd also hope that Frankie de Jong, the kind of transition between Busquets and Frankie de Jong, will start to take shape. But it's difficult because Setién is not a good defensive coach. Like in both his years at Betis, when they scored 60 goals, which actually I was looking up at, they still ranked something like 13th for expected goals that season. So they were just I think they were kind of just very good at finishing, running a little bit hot, as it were. But they still conceded 61. So coming into a Barcelona team which defensively has declined a little bit, Todibo's just gone on loan, hasn't he, to Schalke. So I don't know, at least in the next few months, I think it's going to be really difficult for Setién to change that. Unless,
and I spoke about this on Sunday Vibes, like he likes to play with a 3-4-3 sometimes, right? And Junior Firpo is like this auxiliary left back come left winger. But the Barcelona now, having let Todibo go, have 3 centre halves they can play consistently because Umtiti is just permanently injured, unless he's going to convert Nelson Semedo into sort of a right-sided centre back. Like it seems like. Does he have the tools at his disposal to defensively?
Not at this point.
To improve them at the moment, no.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. He also played a lot of 3-1-4-2 in his last year with Firpo going up and down the wing and Lo Celso and Canales either side of William Carvalho in midfield. I feel like that's maybe where Frankie de Jong could be best utilised, playing that sort of Lo Celso role, going more box to box. But then they don't really have a natural defensive midfielder with the legs other than Busquets, so it'll be fascinating to see. Guys, it's really difficult to predict, but how do we see this going towards the end of the year? The question was about the Champions League. McCubs, they're playing Napoli in the last 16. Do you think this makes them any more likely to win it?
No, in short, not really. I think I don't know. Yeah, they'll get past Napoli, but I think the Liga is now Madrid's to lose. And does it make Barcelona any? I don't know. Barcelona will be more exciting to watch in the Champions League for sure, but I don't know. A lot of those two-legged ties are built off really good defences as well. So I don't think it makes them any more likely. It doesn't make them any less likely to go far in the Champions League or win it, but it doesn't do themselves any favours as it were.
Chris, are you in agreement?
I mean, against Napoli, you'd expect them to win, just because Napoli are experiencing such a horrible run of form themselves. But he's like I've said before, I don't know how else to phrase it. He's no better equipped than Valverde to go deep in the Champions League, and lots of good things have happened at the club, like you just pointed out. Longley, like Griezmann, good player, so on and so forth. Frankie de Jong, like some of these are the right players, and a lot of it, is probably done with good intentions, but there's no coherent plan. And like, is he the guy to come in and wrestle control from the various people behind the scenes that are maybe having too much input. The fact that Xavi doesn't want to be there at this point, bit of a sad indictment of what the club is off the pitch. And that is starting to affect what it is on. I wouldn't have been in a rush to sack Valverde for Setién as a Barcelona fan. I mean, it's hard to say because they're watching that football week in, week out, and they have said it's bad. Results-wise, I wouldn't be in any rush. But if they're happy to sort of, like McCubbin said, risk La Liga by playing better football, then fair enough.
There you have it. That's our opinions on Ernesto Valverde out, Quique Setién in. What do you guys think about it? Let us know in the comments down below. And remember to give some praise to Finley too, and get in touch next week when we're asking for your fan opinion. Let's move on to big match preview. Our big match preview this weekend was requested by @Cuvums, and they asked for Real Madrid versus Sevilla, which takes place on Saturday at 3 p.m. And this sees second place Real Madrid, they're only behind on goal difference, play fourth place Sevilla, who are 5 points back, level on points for that Atletico Madrid. Chris, Real Madrid in a pretty good moment.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic few months for them, haven't they? They've only lost 2 of the last 27 games. PSG, I think that was a 3-0 loss, wasn't it, if memory serves me correctly? And they lost to Mallorca as well. But since that defeat against Mallorca, they've played 16, won 10 and drawn 6 games, scoring 35 and only conceding 7. They've shown a newfound resilience, haven't they? A little bit more defensively astute, which wasn't really a hallmark of Zidane in his first period at the club. Only conceding 3 in their last 10 league games. They now have the joint best defence in La Liga, along with Atletico Madrid. I think they've shipped 12 in total. Only Barcelona on 49 have scored more than their 36 league goals. Barcelona well out in front, aren't they? Although they haven't been that free scoring recently, have they, Real Madrid? So it's dried up a little bit of late. Only scored 3 in their last 3, which included 2 0-0 home draws against Barcelona and Bilbao. Shout out to Bilbao's away kit, absolutely glorious. They've got 5 fewer defeats than they had at this stage last season, so at least achieving a bit of consistency. It was tumultuous, wasn't it, this time last year. The same amount of wins, all while scoring 6 more goals, conceding 12 fewer. That's half the amount of last year, along with 4 more points to boot. They're also top of the league for shots per game as well on 16.6 and second for shots conceded behind Getafe. What a job Bordalas is doing at that club. This is pretty much the 3rd year they've been defensive beasts in the league. First for expected goals are Real Madrid, 3rd for expected goals against, so very deserving of being in the hunt for top spot. I think they'll take it pretty soon, won't they? Benzema, been superb this season, 12 goals, 5 assists, unexpected goals and assist value of 0.98.
Wow.
And Fede Valverde, who's kind of has become the jewel in their midfield, hasn't he? Almost, I want to say overnight, because we knew he was a talent, but in the last 2 to 3 months, he's really captured the hearts and minds of Real Madrid fans, not least by poleaxing Alvaro Morata in the Spanish Super Cup.
What a moment.
But also by contributing to goals. I think he's got 5 goal contributions in 10 starts. Not bad, is it? 1.7 shots, 1.1 key passes, a dribble, as well as a decent amount of defensive work. Only 3 tackles and interceptions. But I suppose when you've got Casemiro next to you, you don't have to do all that much, do you? And the under-21 talents this club has got, pretty frightening. Probably a conversation for a different time. Might make for a good extra time podcast, in fact. But Odegaard, Renier Jesus, who they've just signed, Eder Militao, who's sort of been embedded into the team in recent weeks, hasn't he? Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, Fede Valverde, like we mentioned. Who else is there? Hakimi, Kubo, who's on loan at Mallorca. So yeah, the future looks pretty bright for them. And talking of, bright futures, Sevilla have been in a decent run of form recently, McCubbs.
Yeah, unbeaten in their last 10, won 6 and drawn 4. In that time, scored 14, only conceded 6. And it's really kind of got their season back on track after quite a tricky start. They lost 3 of their opening 8 games. Granted, 2 of those losses were against Barcelona and Real Madrid, which are generally to be expected, obviously. But even then, they were only sitting 6th. I think they were 5 points off Real Madrid at the time, only 3 points above 13th place Valladolid. Obviously, the Liga table towards the start of the season was very, very tight, wasn't it? But like I said, now they're up in fourth. They're fourth for shots per game as well on 13.9, 11th for shots against a game, sixth for expected goals, second for expected goals against, and fifth for expected points. So I think they generally deserve to be in fourth place, give or take. They're 4 points above Real Sociedad. I think they're 5 points ahead of sixth place Getafe, who we've already spoken about. So there is competition there, of course, and it's weird. It's been a solid but unspectacular season for them. I think obviously last campaign towards the start at least they were kind of in contention for kind of third, second, even first place on the machine. And yeah, I mean Lopetegui has had a pretty difficult couple of years.
I'm really pleased for him that he's made Sevilla stable. Like you said, they are deserving of a Champions League place at the moment, and he's done it in the absence of a prolific goal scorer as well. Ben Yedder, of course, going to Monaco, and they've had to spread the goals across the team as a result, right? So it's been a good team effort at Sevilla. Especially as a few signings haven't really panned out as well, like Dabur.
Yeah,
who's already out on loan, isn't
he? Yeah. So yeah, he's gone to Hoffenheim. Luke de Jong hasn't really worked out so far. I mean, yeah, like you're saying, the goals have been more spread around. Lucas Ocampos, their top scorer with 5 goals, only 1 assist to his name. Franco Vasquez has had to he's been the second top scorer with 3 in 16 appearances, only 4 of those starts. So he's just kind of been an impact sub, really. So 11 different goal scorers overall, which it's good. Not amazing, to be honest, if you're thinking about how low the kind of top scorer is. But clearly they've just been a fairly solid unit, kind of grinding out 1-0, 2-1 wins. And they're also being carried by Ever Banega as usual. 2 goals and 6 assists, 1.6 shots a game, 2.2 key passes, 2.1 dribbles, 1.5 tackles and interceptions, 71 passes per game.
Tried to score from a
super
corner
impressive
as well against
Always
Athletic
appreciate
Bilbao,
that.
and hit the crossbar, I think.
Oh, fair play.
Yeah, it was a great effort.
Imagine if there were 2 of those in one season after that Toni Kroos one as well. It's ridiculous.
That was in the Super Cup, wasn't it?
Oh, it was, yeah. But yeah, so I think that's, I mean, I guess in the long term, what Sevilla needs to focus on is trying to find someone who can
score.
Essentially, and also a long-term replacement for Banega because he's not getting any younger, is he? I think he's 31 now.
And out of contract.
So yeah, and out of contract in the summer, isn't he? So yeah.
I think Santi Cazorla though, he's an intelligent enough player to probably play well into his mid-30s.
Yeah, definitely. And his game doesn't particularly rely on pace either. And he's, that 1 year at Inter Milan, he then said he was homesick. I think he's probably not learned his lesson because obviously it's good to try new things. But I think he's probably quite determined to stay in Andalusia for sure. But yeah, Luke de Jong's been a slight disappointment, only 2 goals, but he's actually expected goals suggest he should have 7.
Really?
I haven't watched him enough this year to say whether that's poor finishing or whether he's just been very unlucky. But yeah, Sevilla fans, let us know what you guys think about Luke de Jong in the comments down below.
You haven't watched much Sevilla?
I actually haven't.
You fraud.
I'm never that excited to watch Sevilla. Or even like their highlight packages, to be totally honest. But yeah, changed my mind, Sevilla, in 2020. But yeah, unsurprisingly, Real Madrid have had the better of this fixture in recent years. Their last 14 games, they've had 9 wins and 5 defeats. So no draws. So don't expect a draw in this one. The last time they lost at Sevilla was actually in December 2008 in a 4-3 loss. Sergio Ramos, Marcelo and Jesus Navas all played in that game. So well done to them for lasting a long, long time. Real Madrid obviously have some injuries to contend with. Asensio is out injured. Hazard is expected to be back next weekend, but could return this weekend. Ramos and Bale are also out, so it'll be Eder Militao and Varane, you imagine. Sevilla, in contrast, have a clean bill of health for Lopetegui to choose from as he heads back to his former club.
Can Reguilon play against them?
I would have thought so. Who was it the other day that I saw play against their parent club, which I thought was quite interesting?
On the continent, it happens more than
I think it's only in England that
being allowed.
They're more annoying like that in England. But guys, time for a quick prediction. McCurbs, what do you reckon?
I think it's going to be 3-1 to Real.
Yeah, that came to mind for me as well. What do you reckon, Chris?
Okay, interesting. If Reguilon can play, that'd be great for Sevilla because I think he's been their chief sort of chance creator after Ever Banega down that flank. I'm going to go, I think Lopetegui to exact some revenge. I'm going to go for a really narrow 1-0 victory.
Wow.
And a really scrappy goal as well, like a knee
Love
from
it.
a corner.
From a Luke de Jong's arse. Headline there. Sevilla to beat Real Madrid. I'm, like McCubbin, going to go, I'll go 2-0 Real Madrid. Okay, let's quickly move on to quickfire questions. Our quickfire question today comes from McMasty5, who says, does Ciro Immobile have a legitimate claim to be a top 5 striker in the world right now?
Why are you guffawing at that? Why are you
Well,
laughing?
I just think it's funny. And McMasty says that he's second behind Lewandowski for him. Who wants to kick this off? Ciro Immobile, top 5 striker in the
Top
world.
5, what, we're saying he's in the top 5 number 9s? I mean, on current form, you could definitely make an argument. I think he's finished as what? The Serie A's top goal scorer 3 times in terms of calendar years.
Right,
I think only one other striker has done that. So it's not like it's a flash in the pan.
No.
And his finishing is truly exceptional. I actually think the best player in Serie A at the minute is probably Ilicic for Atlanta.
Awesome.
Over 5 shots a game, creating almost 3 chances a game, completing around 3 dribbles as well. Numbers that even Messi struggled to sustain. And at 31, yeah, vintage. And he looks quite old.
He does look quite old. He's quite a strange looking guy in terms of he's very tall and thin.
Do you know, like
rare for a forward.
I think because of his constant sort of niggling injuries, his nickname, I don't know if it's at Fiorentina or after, was Grandma.
I saw that. Yeah. I love that, Grandma.
I don't know how he got onto Ilicic. Number 9s.
Yeah, McCubbs, what do you think about this?
I definitely wouldn't say he's second. I mean, I don't know. I feel like in Europe it's just kind of between Lewandowski and Timo Werner at the moment, to be honest.
On this season, it's got to be, yeah.
Yeah, but
I'd also throw Aguero in that
it depends what kind of time frame you're looking at. But I mean, I guess you would say this season we're doing it on kind of form. Like, I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard to argue against just because of his record this term.
Yeah. Awesome goal scorer. I'm not disputing that. I just think top 5 all-round strikers is a bit
all-round. So you've thrown all-round in there.
Well, he says top 5 strikers.
But I mean, it's not. Well, but I mean, but I mean, even then, like he's still got a load of assists. I think he's got something like 25 goal contributions so far this term, which is comparable at least with the likes of Lewandowski and Werner. I don't know. I'm trying to think how much they've got.
6, I think.
Who are our top 5 then? Undisputedly Lewandowski. Timo Werner,
I love this.
For sure. Jamie Vardy, 21 goal contributions, like 2 or 3 more than anyone else in the Premier League. He's got to go in there.
In the world?
Yeah.
What, in form number 9?
Sorry, right. In form, right. Yeah. I thought we were talking overall. Yeah, I think this year, though, I'd agree with all those 3. Danny Ings on current form.
A bit like ability-wise, obviously Sergio Aguero, one of the Premier League's all-time greats. But he's only started, 13, 14 games out of 21, 22 in the Premier League?
There actually hasn't been that many outstanding goal-scoring strikers in La Liga this year, weirdly.
No.
I don't think anyone... Well, Benzema's done very well, but not...
But I think then you'd probably do. I think you probably do put Benzema in terms of at least in terms of all-round strikers. Like he's carried Real Madrid when they weren't so good over the last kind of 18 months.
This year we're going Lewandowski, Werner, Benzema, Vardy, and Immobile. We're going Immobile.
Yeah, why not?
Why not? It's that sort of day. It's Friday. Guys, thank you very much for watching. That's our opinion on the best strikers in the world right now. What did you guys think of it? Let us know in the comments down below. And that's all we've got time for on this Friday show. Chris, what should they go and do now?
Well, there's loads of content. We've got We Need to Talk on Football Daily. If you've not checked that out, then please do so. We've got the Extra Time podcast. We'll stick a link in the description below for that. What was the latest one on European transfers? So it relates very nicely to this. I think it was Mike, Joe and Pat. Stat Wars. Who's faced off against who recently?
Myself versus Mike was last weekend, and then this weekend it's James versus David Jackson in the new league, basically.
And we'll know about that.
Yeah.
So.
And guys, get excited. Stat Wars the Champions is coming back next month. Have a great weekend, guys. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye.